Visible learning for literacy is not new elements. These are familiar ideas. The big idea in this book is where you place these literacy strategies. You gotta know, are you working on surface learning, deep learning, or transfer of learning? We've made some mistakes in the past. We have used a lot of literacy strategies as if they work at all times for all kids at all moments in their lives. What we're arguing here is that not all strategies work equally well at every point in a learner's lives. There are things that simply work better to develop surface learning. Surface learning is important. It's not the only thing we do with students. We also want them to go to deep and transfer learning. And different approaches work at deep and transfer. Our plea in this book is never hold a strategy in higher esteem than students' learning. It's not just the strategies. It's about making sure students are actually learning. We all have time for that. That's what we do.
Surface, deep, and transfer of learning are really describing three phases of learning. I wish that they were as bright and obvious as they could be, but they really aren't. They really kind of blend in to one another. But a way of thinking about it is in considering, first of all, the surface learning. That's when a student, a learner of any kind, is really beginning to understand the contours and the boundaries of a skill or a concept. And at the surface phase of learning, that's when we're really, as teachers, developing those skills and concepts. But it doesn't just stop there. We need to move into those deeper phases of learning. And at the deeper phase of learning, this is where we're really beginning to foster patterns and connections. We're building schema. We're helping them to begin to see that these particular skills or these particular concepts really do apply in other arenas, not just the area that they were initially introduced into. And then finally, at the transfer level, we're really looking at ways in which students can apply that level of knowledge to lots of new and novel situations. The ability, as a math teacher once described to me, the ability to do math when there isn't a math teacher standing behind you saying, do math, that you recognize, oh yeah, this is a time when I'm going to be able to use that tool. Surface, deep, and transfer of learning happen all the time in our classes. As we introduce skills and concepts, we move to being able to recognize the patterns and the connections across concepts, and then most importantly, that students are able to use those concepts and skills in lots of new and novel ways. When I look for evidence of transfer with any learner, I'm really looking at how it is that that student can begin to resolve problems. For me, that's a great indication that they're moving into that transfer phase of learning. When they recognize what a problem is and they begin to have some ideas about how it is that they might resolve that problem. Teachers recognize those eureka moments, those moments when you almost see the light bulb go off over a child's head or an adolescent's head. That's transfer. That's when you know that they have taken an idea and they can run with it. I'll use an example of surface, deep, and transfer at the middle school level. Sixth graders are typically introduced to formal argumentation in writing. And initially, they need to develop the skills and the concepts that go with formal argumentation. So we introduce to them things like ethos, pathos, and logos as ways of being able to define what argumentative writing is, who your audience is, and so on. But very quickly, we want them to move beyond simply being able to recognize when a writer is using various techniques for argumentative writing. And we want them to begin to see it and apply it in the reading and the writing that they're doing. So for example, when we saw Brandy's lesson with close reading, her students already knew at a surface level what argumentative writing was. Now they were applying that and looking for those writerly moves in the close reading that they were looking at about whether college athletes should be paid or not for the sports that they play. That's that deep level of learning. Can you begin to recognize the patterns that are happening? I know what argumentative writing is, and I can recognize when a writer is using that. But at that transfer level, that's when they're able to compose their own original writing using those argumentative writing techniques on their own, to put them together in these really new and unique kinds of ways. As writers, when we see them doing that, that's evidence of their transfer of those skills and those concepts.